Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today on our first virtual concert. We are so excited to be bringing this to you today. What you just heard was a beautiful piece by Chris Theofanidis called Aria, performed by the wonderful percussionist Sam. And we've got both of them here with us right now, along with Grace Park and Yoon Lee, who are our next artists that are going to perform. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
So maybe Chris and Sam, since we've got you here and we just heard your piece, maybe we could start with you. Sam, do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you found this piece, why you love performing this piece?
Yeah. Well, I consider myself to be very lucky because this piece kind of fell in my lap. So my time at Yale, the Yale Percussion Studio kind of centers around the ensemble, so Yale Percussion Group. So we give one concert each year, and we sort of prepare really, really hard for that one concert. And every year we sort of try to set a theme to it. So my second year at Yale was, it had this theme of YPG, Yale Percussion Group plays Yale School of Music. And my teacher there did that because Yale School of Music has one of the best compositional faculties and also students in the world. I mean, the students that come out of there are now changing the entire scene of music today. And that's why he wanted to celebrate the compositional studio and to collaborate with percussion studio. So we commissioned and played a lot of the pieces by composition faculties and also students. And one of the piece, of course, Chris teaches at Yale, and the piece that he chose was this marimba concerto, and whole sole mission for me was to turn it into a marimba solo, working with Chris. So it was a really, really exciting project, and in hindsight, it was just amazingly fun and amazing experience to work directly with the composer in changing it to a solo piece. So I got a score. I received the score of the solo part, the original solo marimba part, and we worked on it together to make it into a marimba solo.
That is so cool. So I didn't even realize that. So Chris, can you talk to us about what was the original form of this piece? Why did you
Yeah.
originally start it?
First, I should say Sam has saved me many times, not just on this piece, but he also did the trap set part for the piece I did for the Baltimore Symphony for the wire. He really steered me right, and so it's nice to be able to kind of work with somebody over a couple of pieces to begin with. But this piece initially started off as a marimba concerto for like a wind sinfonietta and solo marimba.
Yeah.
I wrote for Bob Van Cise, and it was a weird form. It was like a 3-movement concerto inside of a prologue and an aria. And the aria movement is the one that's kind of the most exposed and the one that is kind of the most intimate. And it seemed to be the right movement to kind of feature for a solo kind of version, you know?
Yeah.
And, part of the writing of that piece was really influenced by my teacher, who I know you guys play a lot, Jacob Druckmann, Reflections on the Nature of Water, which is really, I mean, just water droplets. You feel the individual power of a single note, of a single resonance. And so that's in a way where that came from. And it was just a pleasure to try to figure out the most resonant, the most beautiful kind of single sounds and ways of connecting a line within that very fragile, spacious kind of landscape.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. I mean, I was really struck when I was listening to Sam play this. I was struck by the economy of the means that you use, Chris. Like, in many percussion pieces, I think composers sometimes go the other way, where there's millions and millions of notes all over the place. And I thought this was such a interesting challenge for a percussionist to have to create that connection on an instrument that, of course, doesn't actually connect in that way. It really has a lot to do with the performers. So that's such an interesting thing.
Thanks.
Okay, well, so let's turn to Grace and Yoon. Thank you guys so much for being here too. So can you tell us about what we're about to hear next?
Yeah, you're about to hear the Dvorak Romance in F minor for violin and piano. It was originally written for a string quartet. and it was the slow movement and one of his string quartets, which wasn't super successful. So then he reworked the piece into a violin piece with violin and orchestra, and then he himself arranged it for violin and piano.
Yeah.
And that was dedicated to the same person that premiered his violin concerto. And it's a work that I fell in love with when I first heard it when I was 13, and it's a piece that's just grown with me, and it's really great that I get to still perform it, because it's surprisingly a piece that's not programmed that much, maybe because of the duration, but I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces written for the violin repertoire.
Wow, wow. And Yoon, have you guys performed this piece together a lot, or is this a COVID-19 social distancing project that you're working on?
So we're in a such lucky situation. We actually had only played once together for Grace's number competition, which she won with prize. And we have been, yes, I know, amazing. And we've been neighbors for past 2 years.
2 years.
And we literally live across from each other in the same building on the same floor.
Yeah.
So when COVID-19 started, we were like, okay, we should quarantine together and make some music. And of course, along with cooking and baking and working out together and hanging out together at night. So when Grace was asked to play this piece, I never knew this piece. I heard of it, but I never performed it. So I was very lucky to learn this piece, and yeah.
That's
great.
amazing. I'm so jealous. That's so wonderful that you guys found each other in that way. So you've been doing other recordings during this time then?
We are thinking about some projects. We haven't delved into it, but yeah, I'm sure we will.
Yeah, it's been a nice excuse for us to finally work together, because
Yeah.
it's like the thing that we would always say in the hallways. We're like, we should play together, and and then finally we get to do it because of COVID. So
yeah,
silver lining for us.
I'm finding that in my life too. There are lots of things like that. Even just reaching out to someone that I haven't seen in a while, like stuff that I should have been doing anyway that I'm only doing now because I'm stuck in my apartment all the time. So that's such an amazing thing. Well, Sam and Chris, how about you guys? Oh, sorry, I didn't quite get that.
No, I was just saying we have no excuse not to. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Sam and Chris, what have you guys been doing to keep yourselves occupied?
I guess I can go. Yeah, thank you. Not much. I'm kind of like, I think what I do is I try. I think one of the things that's been a challenge is to keep concentration, strangely with all this time, like to have a really focused concentration. And so my writing has been kind of in fits and starts. Like I can kind of work for like a half an hour at a time, and I'm used to writing at 2-hour blocks basically. So that has been a lot more compressed, but it's also kind of, I decided that, to have a lot of input in this period is really important. So every day I read a short story, a couple of poems, and study Spanish. And I've been doing some things kind of in small parcels just to kind of keep it interesting and some variety and kind of regular, And I'm down here in Houston at the moment where I'm still teaching up at Yale, which is kind of an amazing thing. But my family's down here, my mom and my brother and his family. And so we take socially appropriate distance for our walks together, about 10 feet apart, and, do that kind of thing. So we see each other even though we're all in separate homes. But yeah.
That's great.
Chris, I'm curious, where do you usually write? And how has this been affecting your writing? Because I know that every composer has their space that,
I think that's really true. And it's like, that's the thing that I think people maybe don't think so much about, but the location that you do what you do is actually like a really important part of it. And so my studio at Yale is set up in a very particular way, and it feels like I walk in there and I can start right away. I mean, it just feels that natural. And here in Houston, I rented a place that's completely new, and it's lovely, and I like it, but it's it's also doesn't have a piano. It doesn't have a lot of the kind of things that I have. So getting used to that is a little bit tricky, but I think everybody's in that boat creatively, and people respond so differently, and you have to find your rhythm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Sam, how about you?
Well, currently I'm pursuing a doctorate degree from Peabody at Johns Hopkins. So I think for graduate students, not a lot have changed, I think, for a lot of graduate students, just because we still have the same amount of reading, same amount of writing, exams and tests, stuff like that. So I've been sort of focusing, and of course, just like all the musicians, on my concerts being canceled. So that actually gives me some chance to really focus on schoolwork. So that's how I've been, yeah. So it's been quite busy actually, because school is sort of like, you're home now, so let's just throw you things that we can. And yeah, it's been very studious time for me. Yeah.
And here, Sam, right before we go, would you just say a few words about the last piece that we're going to hear after Grace and Yoon?
Sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece, or it's a transcription by Toru Takamitsu of Over the Rainbow. And it's from his collection of 12 songs for guitar. It was originally written for guitar. And he just kind of compiled 12 of his favorite pop songs, and also folk music, and transcribed it and arranged it for guitar. So it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. I hope you enjoy, and I hope that this piece, just like sort of the theme of this concert, brings you at least some sort of smile in your life, at least today. And yeah, please enjoy.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here and for sharing your talents with us. Thank you to everyone out there watching us. And coming up next, we have Grace and Yoon. Please enjoy.